Hello, everybody. Hope you're well. Joining you today to talk about an important topic, and that is the plight of the modern man. Many men are lost at the moment, really lost in this world, trying to understand what it is they're supposed to do, trying to find their purpose and their direction in a world that's so chaotic. And so I wanted to talk a bit about the origins and the issues around this, and hopefully offer some clarity for some men, but also the women, any women that are listening as well, to try and understand a bit more about where we've been, where we're going, and how we can walk forward with God in a new age. So we have been living in recent times in a very gynocentric world order, which is fueled by emotionalism and feelings often being put as more important than truth. And I'm sure it's not hard to find evidence of that when you look at the state of the world, where people's feelings are being put ahead of objective truth. And it's not to say that we shouldn't consider people's feelings, but I think what we have witnessed is a bit of a balance shift in the fact that many times the truth has been shut out or quieted for the benefit of a person's emotionalism. And while people's emotions are obviously important to consider, they shouldn't be getting in the way of rationality and truth and law. So many men these days are obviously labelled as dangerous if they're if they have a lot of clarity. Their will is deemed oppressive, their discipline is called toxic, and their commitment to truth is described as inflexible. And even his presence for some can be intimidating. And I also want to say, as I get into this video, that I certainly don't come on here to defend every single man, because I understand that there are many men out there who are abusing power and who are aggressive and we could say toxic. But I think it's been a very easy label to throw around for a lot of men, and what's come of that is a lot of men have got caught up thinking that they have to now capitulate to the feelings of others, even over above what they know to be true, because of the court of public opinion and because of the narratives that are out there. And then what happens is opinion becomes more important than the law of God. And I will obviously touch on God, because to me that's a central point to this whole message that I'm going to share. But what we see is men end up performing to try and get something. Now, a lot of men who are moving to self-development are trying to look a certain way for approval or safety, abandoning father's law for the mother wound, really, gravitating to popular influencers as well, who may be giving them permission to act in a certain way. But so often that swings so far in the other direction that toxic label ends up becoming true. I've mentioned before in videos, you see men who are retaining their semen, often for performance, often for magnetism and gain, instead of a way to honour God, instead of a way to honour the generative power that they've been given by the divine. And spiritual men who are in spiritual circles, they have moved into a state that is overly yin and feminized, forgetting that the Christ energy, the Christic energy, is the embodiment of lawful light, which is direct, upright, unshakable, not aggressive, but immovable, So men in these circles are encouraged to move into more of those feminine spaces. Meditation is a massive thing that I've mentioned as well before. Going into the feminine energy, the darkness, the mystery, trying to float away to find God, floating around in there. Many believe that you have to do that to find God. You have to be out of the body to find God, as I've also talked about in another video. But what happens there is there's no principle, there's no structure, there's just chaos. And so that masculine principle ends up getting diluted more and more. Instead of walking with those principles of discipline, of will, of power and light, they end up getting lost in chaos, emotionalism, and the void space where there's nothing really going on. And why is this happening? Well, obviously a lot of people these days talk about systems of patriarchy being the problem, toxic masculinity being the problem, and understandably so. Of course, there are systems of control here that have got a bit unbalanced, but what's happened is we've looked to men as the problem for the ungrounded, unbalanced masculinity rather than understanding it at its core. Because masculinity is not a male, it's not exclusive to men. It's an energy that anybody can embody. And when you look at it objectively, you can see how we as a collective have used masculine energy in an imbalanced way. The ego's mimicry of using masculinity to dominate, to have control. And there are many women that have been doing this as well in recent times. Interestingly, a lot of women who are against the toxic masculine are behaving in a very toxic masculine way. So this isn't to blame men or women. That's the main point I want to make about this. It's about understanding how the mind, which is the masculine principle, has been infiltrated by egoic needs for safety and survival, control and manipulation, and that through our collective has created these distorted systems. So it's not about blaming one gender or the other. Really, it's a result of forgetfulness in divine law through the collective. We've all played a part in it. The mind is a masculine polarity function, and it builds systems to secure itself where control has become the goal, and power has been measured by dominance, not devotion. So we have to stop confusing masculinity with just men, because it's something that we've all played a part in. True masculinity is defending the innocent. It's holding the line. It's protecting the temple, carrying responsibility for the good, and always bowing to God. But obviously, in these recent times, there's been a lot of muddying of waters. And I think when you look at the coming out of the age of Pisces, it's almost like I've mentioned in another video, Pisces, the depth, the feeling, the emotionalism, the waters, which many have avoided and then gone straight up into the mind, men and women alike. And so then the mind in confusion, the egoic mimicry starts to look how to secure itself, build walls, create separation and division. And as I mentioned in my last video, using knowledge as a way to separate and control rather than to find unity and sameness in the culture. So what we're seeing instead of this divine mind principle is an unanchoring from God, which no longer serves but weaponizes its position. Not just in politics, business or war, but this is happening at home and in spiritual circles as well as in relationships. So what's happening in 2026 and as we move further into the Aquarian age is we've got to stop looking backwards. We've got to stop looking in the past. The shadow work, we've done all that, all the trauma, all the wounding, all the narrative. Yes, it's all got its place, but how much time are we going to spend swimming around in that, adapting to people pleasing and forgetting that we have standards in God, not in others' expectations? Aquarius is a age of solar masculine, divine mind. And again, it's not about men taking the power, but about the mind starting to come back into alignment with the heart, but still having a place for order and structure, discipline, law. These things need to be in our creation because it's those things that have fallen away. We've used legality to, again, control and manipulate rather than to walk in alignment with the divine law. So for men, it's so important to have a sense of principle, discipline, accountability and constitution, knowing who you are and walking that in good faith, because so many men are asking, who am I? I don't know who I am. But I would say, as I'm going to get to in this, that God is the answer. Many people want to know, where is the divine masculine? Why have we got no sacred masculine on this planet? And the reason is because we don't look to the Father, who is the epitome of that archetype. If you want to know what divine masculine really looks like, Father is where you need to look. And so for the men right now, I say quite clearly, if God has got to come back into the picture. And where we are headed, the choices I've mentioned before is God or no God. But we have seen a world where we have rejected God or we have forgotten God, and what that leads to. We build up structures for our own exaltment, for our own needs of survival and safety, rather than building with God at the core of everything. People are out there trying to build new communities and breakaway societies that are essentially fueled by separation versus fueled by faith in and grounding in God's law. So a man who walks in God's law is not confused about how to treat a woman, is not confused about his purpose. He isn't afraid of pressure. He doesn't look to the culture for his cues or for his permissions to be who he is. He builds because he has a spine, not just political and moral, but spiritual, a spiritual backbone which is forged in obedience to God. Semen retention is not being used for power, it's being used to honour God. You don't need to meditate to escape, you meditate to receive the command. Again, I've mentioned before, meditate on the word of God, because that will be your covenant that you live by every day. You don't need to chase feminine union, because if you walk lawfully in your masculine and feminine principles, you will find that you will attract that. You don't need to be worrying about how to approach a woman. You know the law, you walk the law, so that the feminine seeks you. That's what true magnetism is going to be about. It's not about how you can manipulate this world so you can get it your way. It's about how you walk lawfully with God so that everything comes to you in the name of that. So what you need to remember, men, moving forward into 2026 is it's not about appearing powerful, but it's about being accountable to power. As I've said before, the most powerful king must also be the most obedient servant, because we have to remember where we are getting our life force from, and that is God. So it's not about being attractive, it's about being available to the Father's will, because he will put everything in your path that you need anyway. It's not about being emotional, capitulating to emotions. It's not to say that we can't be emotional, but how much are we being emotional because we think we've got to prove something? The word vulnerability, that gets bandied around a lot. You've got to be vulnerable. The word vulnerable means open yourself up to attack, and men do not need to be doing that. If emotion comes, but we shouldn't need to be seeking it out just to prove a point or make someone else feel comfortable. So it's not about being emotional, it's about being trustworthy. And it's not about leading others and telling us what to do. It's about allowing ourselves to be led by the Most High. So the most powerful message I want to leave in this video for the men is, if you are looking for purpose, if you are looking for direction, if you are looking for how to be a divine masculine presence in this world, bring the Father back in, because his law is there. And when you walk towards him, he opens everything up for you. The path is there. All you've got to do is walk it and say, what would you have me do, Father? And he's going to show you the way.